Hello everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Zachary Reality here, your favorite reality TV expert. We have a lot to go through today as this week in The Bachelor has been dramatic. Dare I say the most dramatic season ever?
You go home and Aaron from Katie's season.
Between the Women Tell All, fantasy suites, the drama between Clayton and Susie, we're gonna break it all down on this week's YouTube video. So before we get into it, you guys know the drill. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you never miss out on any future videos. Let's start with the Women Tell All because I got some tea for you guys. I got some opinions, I got some hot takes, and I want to hear what you guys think about them. Gotta start with Shanae. I mean, where else? So Shanae really came into the Women Tell All not really phased. It seemed like a lot of the girls were ganging up on her, insulting her, being mean to her. Yes, they were trying to hold her accountable, but there was no getting through to Shanae. I mean, she had a glazed over look on her face the entire time. She would smirk every time someone would insult something at her, and nothing seemed to get through to her. And we've really never seen this before on a Women Tell All. Usually the villains, you know, show some remorse, like Tiara or Courtney or whoever. Usually they at least cry and show some remorse. Shanae had zero remorse. I was shocked. I literally was shocked. I felt like after watching back the season, you would think that she would at least apologize for lying and calling the girls fake ass bitches. And it's like she still doubled down on that at the Women Tell All. And I felt like Elizabeth should have gotten an apology for the ADHD comments Shanae made. And unfortunately, we didn't get to see that. Apparently Elizabeth's, you know, section or whatever was cut out of the tell all because there's no way they did not address the Shanae and Elizabeth feud because that was a way bigger feud in the season than Shanae and Genevieve. However, I kind of have a theory that producers wanted to punish Elizabeth because she did break a few rules throughout this season of The Bachelor. I remember when she posted her Bachelorette, you know, mock-off promo shoot and they made her delete it. Like there was just a few things Elizabeth posted online that that she wasn't allowed to. So I almost feel like producers wanted to cut her out. And I also think that they didn't want to bring up the ADHD comments again because it was kind of a sensitive topic and it really made the franchise look bad for, you know, having that discussion even on TV to begin with. Even though it did open up some doors and created a lot of change, Elizabeth used her platform to kind of promote it. I still think that, you know, she was punished and they cut that part out. Instead, they put the drama between Shanae and Genevieve. I mean, Genevieve said the meanest things to Shanae and a few of the other girls. I mean, Lindsay, Rotten Ohio, Jill, I mean, Kate, lock yourself in a closet. It's just like two wrongs don't make a right. And it felt like a lot of the girls were really yelling and bullying Shanae, accusing her of all the mean things that she did. But it's almost like these girls said meaner things to Shanae than she even said to them. However, I understand why they were so frustrated with her because she wasn't willing to take any accountability. And I almost wonder if she did take some accountability, if they would have laid off, or if they did kind of, you know, approach it differently, maybe she would have been able to be more responsive and communicative. Either way, it was frustrating to see no resolution between Shanae and the girls because what we want at a tell-all, we do want the fighting and the screaming and all the tea, but we want a tell-all to like have resolution. And unfortunately, there was no resolution between Shanae and Genevieve. And one thing I want to point out is we all remember when Genevieve posted that sign on her story, F you Shanae, from when she was at a club, and Genevieve said that, you know, the club brought it out, but Genevieve still was insensitive posting it on her story. You know, we all thought at the time that Genevieve and the rest of the girls were beating a dead horse. And then what we didn't know is that that was the day the Women Tell All was filmed. And that was the day Shanae accused Genevieve of effing Aaron Clancy, which was a low blow and clearly a defense mechanism to get the attention off of her because Shanae did not want to hold herself accountable.
Talking about Aaron Clancy from...
Oh, yeah.
I met him at a bar. I didn't even kiss him.
Genevieve, you don't need to defend yourself.
And to put it on Genevieve. So, I mean, it provides a little bit more context into why Genevieve posted that story. And I mean, hey, I kind of see her point of view a little bit more now. Some other takeaways from the tell-all, or the tea I wanted to say, is that Sally was at the tell-all. She was brought at the end for a hot seat. She was not out with the rest of the women. Unfortunately, or fortunately, they ended up cutting out her segment, probably due to time. And I mean, listen, we still don't know what happened with Sally and her damn fiance. Why can't she just go on a podcast or say something? But no, Sally wants to be radio silent. Sarah also got brought into the hot seat. She, you know, a lot of the girls accused Sarah of being manipulative off camera in the house, kind of, you know, overplaying her relationship with Clayton to downplay theirs and to make them scared to grow a connection, because Sarah kind of seemed like she had it all in the bag. That's what a lot of the girls were accusing Sarah of. You know, I kind of feel like Sarah owned up to her part for the most part. I mean, it still felt like she was lying about the crying thing, and she really never made it clear whether Clayton was really crying or not crying. So, I mean, that was kind of frustrating with Sarah, because I root for Sarah and I really like her and I think she handled herself well. But when a lot of girls have an issue with you in the house, you know, there's got to be some truth to it. So maybe Sarah was being a little bit, you know, competitive and manipulative, but it's The Bachelor, and, you know, that's the environment. And, you know, she probably, you know, sacrificed some of her friendships while, you know, trying to pursue her relationship with Clayton. And I think that's just kind of what happens on the show. And, you know, she didn't go about it the best way, but I don't think that means she's a bad person. I really also appreciated Claire, the girl who said she hated Clayton, you know, on night one. You know, she kind of owned up to the fact that, like, she didn't want to be there, and, you know, she didn't vibe with him, and she ended up leaving. And it was just really funny the way Claire, like, had her segment. So I hope to see Claire on Bachelor in Paradise, and I hope to see Cassidy there as well. I felt like she did a good job of owning her part, saying, yeah, I had an F-buddy on the side, but I wouldn't have cut off that F-buddy and that good D unless I was getting an engagement ring. You know, a lot of the girls were just kind of pouncing on Cassidy as well, but, you know, I think she held her ground and stood her own, and she kind of stood up to Shanae too, because apparently Cassidy was Shanae's, like, only friend in the house. Teddy's hot seat totally made me cry because she was so emotional. I really appreciated how Teddy normalized being a virgin on this show and the way she articulated it, because whenever we see virgins on this show, we always think of Ashley I, who was just like the dramatic, emotional virgin, and I feel like Teddy did a good job of making virgins cool again. So I appreciated that. I don't necessarily believe the fact that one of Clayton's brothers slid into Teddy's DMs. You know, I saw all the tweets and, like, where are the screenshots? Where is the proof? It felt like a little bit of a producer plant to get that wow factor, especially because Teddy was one of the main girls of the season. But Teddy will definitely be, you know, the first person to enter the beach on Bachelor in Paradise if we get another season of Bachelor in Paradise. And Serene also got her hot seat. I think she did really well. I don't think Serene, you know, has the biggest personality, so I don't necessarily think that she will be the next Bachelorette. She didn't kind of have that heartwarming story that maybe Teddy has, or some of the other girls in the final three. I'm sure we'll see Serene on Bachelor in Paradise. You know, she is super beautiful and trendy, you know, and she really held herself to the highest of class throughout the season. I did see a lot of people complaining about Sierra, who was very vocal throughout the entire tell-all. You know, I kind of watched the tell-all back last night, and, you know, I see where it came across that Sierra was interjecting a lot, but I also felt like Sierra had some valid points. I mean, she was looking out for Clayton, and she tried to look out for Clayton, and it did seem like Clayton didn't look out for her or a lot of the other women, and he didn't own up to the fact that maybe he had a stronger connection with Shanae, and that's why he chose to listen to her instead of the other women. So I think that's where Clayton went wrong. And I mean, I think Clayton obviously had a lot to own up to and to apologize to. I personally have started to like Clayton more throughout the season, no matter what mistakes he made, but I kind of agree with Sierra when she said, you know, he's probably not ready for marriage. And obviously after watching Fantasy Suites and the way he handled the Susie situation, it doesn't seem like he really is ready, you know, to make this clear mind. He's not thinking with his heart or his head, he's thinking with his d. So, I mean, listen, he definitely deserved to get roasted, but I don't think he's a bad guy, and I do think it's really hard to be the Bachelor navigating 30 relationships, 30 different women's feelings. So, let's cut the guy a little bit of slack, even though he has probably made more mistakes than most of the other Bachelors, but maybe the producers wanted that because they wanted this chaotic season, so they knew what they were doing when they picked him. And that brings me into Fantasy Suites week. We got to talk about it because obviously the Susie and Clayton drama has had everyone talking. Everyone has an opinion. What side do you stand on? I do want to start off, with Rachel's date. She had a great date. They fell in love. They were clearly intimate with each other. I still think that Clayton and Rachel make the most sense together. I think they have the strongest connection. I'm still rooting for them, and I still want them to be together in the end. Gabby got the next one-on-one date. She's, in love with Clayton. Clayton's in love with her. They do the fantasy suites. They're in Iceland. And then they also end up being intimate. I just love Gabby so much, but I just don't see Gabby and Clayton's connection being for the long haul. I understand that he loves the idea of her, but I don't think he's truly in love with her. I just feel like they're on two different pages, and I just don't see the natural chemistry between Gabby and Clayton like I do with Rachel and Clayton. So I do want to say that. And now we have Susie, who is spiraling on her spiral staircase throughout the week as the other girls go on their one-on-one dates. And I do want to remind you guys that there is a day in between each one-on-one date during Fantasy Suites week. So Rachel has her date, Fantasy Suite, a day off, then Gabby, then another day off. So at this point, Susie is sitting home for 4 or 5 days before she gets her date, and she's freaking out because she sees the girls come home clearly really happy, clearly satisfied because Gabby came back with bedhead, and of course she's gonna freak out because at this point in the journey, yes, we all know it's The Bachelor, the girls are living together. Back in the day in The Bachelor, the girls would be separated after Final Four, so they wouldn't have to see each other, but now they're stuck seeing each other, so it's kind of obvious to read what happened on Rachel and Gabby's face. No wonder Susie is freaking out because the guy that she loves, that she's been waiting all week for to get her date, clearly, satisfied and fell in love with other 2 women. So Susie going into this date, she's already freaking out. And yes, it's The Bachelor, but imagine the guy that you are falling in love with 2 other girls. You don't want to share your man's attention and affection with 2 other girls. And now that they've been intimate, it adds a whole nother layer to it. So even though this is The Bachelor, think about it as it is kind of real life too. And when you get to the point where it's the end, and how Clayton said, I love you to Susie, I love you more than the other 2 girls, no wonder Susie feels so hurt and emotionally distraught, emotionally, physically cheated on, because if he really loved her more than the other 2 girls, maybe he should know not to sleep with them or share love with them, or maybe he should have just been more sensitive to how Susie would react to that bomb being dropped on her, because she was trying to process it the best way she could. And when you get to this point of the show, it's no longer about the show, it's about the real love and connection. And if Clayton really loves Susie like he said he did, then why was he so upset with her and lashed out at her?
If you had this big old reservation, this huge deal breaker, why would you not bring this up?
And he said that the reason he lashed out at Susie the way he did was because that moment he felt like Susie was trying to get out of there, remove herself from the situation, and become the next Bachelorette. And since he's already felt played by Shanae and Sarah and a couple of the other girls, Clayton felt extremely blindsided and betrayed because Susie did not let Clayton know earlier that it would be an ultimatum for her that if he, fell in love with 2 other girls, even though Susie gave him permission to explore these relationships and it's The Bachelor, Susie says she was still hopeful that Clayton would know better to not think with his dick and just kind of save that for Susie. Now, in Clayton's defense, he is a man, and there's obviously some truth to those early Missouri TikToks that we saw in the beginning. He's a man. He's thinking with his He has done the show for the past 2 months making out with girls. He probably just wants to have sex already. So God forbid he lets himself have sex with the 2 girls. And it really comes down to this, because sex is different for everyone. There's emotional sex, which clearly, Susie is all about. And then there's physical sex, which is, I just got to get it in, see if I like it, and it's okay if, you have sex with someone else. Because we obviously don't know how Rachel and Gabby are going to react next week. Clearly, they look distraught in the trailer, and obviously, they're going to probably or possibly break up with Clayton over it. But are they more upset that he fell in love with all the women, or are they more upset that he had sex with all the women? It's kind of interesting because we've never seen this on The Bachelor where the lead just kind of forthright says he had sex with all of them and he's in love with all of them. Usually they're a little bit more calm, cool, and collected with that, keeping that information to themselves, but Clayton is just putting it out there. So in one way, you could respect his honesty he's having with the women. In another way, it's just like, boy, make up your mind. Who do you really love? There's 3 of us left. You can't pick all of us. Stop giving us all of the same thing. What's special? What's real? No wonder all 3 of the women feel so blindsided. And it was extremely disrespectful the way that, he talked down to Susie and said, I don't even know you anymore, and whatever. He did reveal on the the podcast that the next day he realized that that wasn't the case, which is why a lot of people are saying online that Susie is going to come back and that they might be able to have a conversation because she left really abruptly. He kicked her out. He was like, goodbye. And she was trying to ration with him and reason with him and hear his side and explain her side. But there was no going through to Clayton as he became very upset. He got very red. And I mean, listen, we've all been upset before. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. I do want to make it clear I am team Susie, but I also see both sides. But I am going to say I am team Susie if I have to pick, because I am the same way, where for me, sex is about emotion. Love is about emotion. I would be so hurt no matter the circumstance if my man was in love with two other, guys or girls, whatever. So I'm more leaning towards Susie's side, but I understand why, Clayton felt so upset in that moment and he wasn't able to calm down because he was just so blindsided, even though like the bigger bomb that was dropped was on Susie, not him, but whatever. So I think that Clayton just needs to kind of calm down and talk to Susie the next day. I know he sent her home, but maybe like he'll rethink it tomorrow and be able to have a conversation with her. They also like wasted a fantasy suite. Like a fantasy suite for Susie and Clayton could have been the perfect time to have that private alone time without cameras and producers to discuss their feelings and sit on things. And I know that they needed space from each other because things did get so hot and heavy, but maybe go into the fantasy suites, take a shower, Clayton, and then come back. It's a big suite. It's not like a studio apartment like I live in. Like, take a second, and then maybe they could have talked more. I don't know if the producers prevented the fantasy suite because, this is so intriguing. We have to see this play out on camera. They didn't want to give them that off-camera time. I think that producers maybe infiltrated that, but I really think Susie and Clayton would have benefited, having that alone time to discuss things rather than him sending her home in such a rash decision.
I'm not trying to place any extra blame on you, but the fact of the matter is like, I don't even know who I'm looking at anymore. Like, I don't.
Dude, like, please don't say that. Like, that's like the worst part in all of this.
So, I mean, that kind of sums up, the Women Tell All in fantasy suites. Obviously, there's so much to unpack, so I will reply to all of you guys in the comments if you have any more questions or if you have any more, thoughts that you want to hear from me. I'm happy to make more TikToks about it, so just comment down those below. Let me know your opinions and your thoughts, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and let me know your predictions for next week's 2-night finale. It's gonna be Monday night and Tuesday night, so we're gonna be back on my channel, back on Zachary Reality on all platforms, breaking it down, so be sure to follow, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!